Hi guys, I miss you, but we'll try to do the Pythagorean theorem. It'll make you so much happier. There are tons of videos, by the way, on Pythagorean theorem if you want to Google anything, but let's try to see the basics. And this is something that definitely comes up again a lot in math and next year in algebra and in geometry and algebra 2. So let's see how we do. Okay, first of all, you got to know the parts of a right triangle. That Pythagorean theorem is for a right triangle. So the first part you want to know is obviously it has a right angle. Directly across from that is always known as the hypotenuse. And again, guys, you have all these notes if you just want to watch the video and follow along with the handwritten notes that I already gave you. But if you want to copy them down yourself because it helps you, go right ahead. And that is always the longest side of the triangle, and it's always across from the right angle. So there it is. The other two sides that make the right angle, that come in like this, those are known as the legs. Okay. Now, instead of writing leg and hypotenuse all the time, hypotenuse goes by the letter C and the legs go by the letter A and B. And they can switch spots. A and B can switch. C always has to be the side across from the right angle. Okay, so now what the Pythagorean theorem says is that if you square the legs, the two legs, how long they are, and you square them and add them together, it's the same as if you just squared the hypotenuse. So that's the theorem, the Pythagorean theorem. And so basically, we're going to use that theorem to find missing sides on the triangle. So what we will do is this. So when the triangle is given to you, if you look at this first one, we know the legs are 6 and 8, but the hypotenuse is C, so that's what's missing. So what we do is we always label, okay, if that's C, that means these guys are A and B, either order. Everybody always starts out by writing the Pythagorean theorem. You're going to know it in your sleep. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And then it's just a matter of dropping the numbers in and using your calculator. So I put 6 squared, 6 in for A, 8 in for B, and I still don't know C, so I'm going to leave that blank. Okay, that's my unknown. So 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64, that equals C squared. And then I add those together, and 64 and 36 is 100, right? So if that's 100, then I want to undo something that's squared, we learned we take the square root. So if I take the square root of 100, it's 10. So the answer would be 10 feet, is how long the hypotenuse is, which makes sense because it's supposed to be the longest side, and 10 is longer than those two numbers, okay? Let's try this one and see if we can do it. So this time, again, I find the right angle, I draw my line across, that's always C. So X, I still don't have an actual number there, so either X or C, you can put in either one. And again, I'm just going to label these other two A and B so I don't forget. So then I write A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I drop in 12 for A, I drop in 5 for B, and I can put an X squared or you can leave it C, it's totally up to you, but since they had an X there, I'm going to do that. 144 plus 25 equals X squared. Add those together, that's 169 equals X squared. Last step, take the square root, and that would be 13 centimeters, which again makes sense because that's the longest side. So if you wanted to try a blank one and pause the video and see if you could do it, you could do this one and then come back to me and I'll show you the answer for it. But so if you go ahead and pause if you want, and I'll do this while you're trying it too. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. 9 squared plus 12 squared equals X squared. 81 plus 144 equals X squared. If I add those two together, I get, where I might need my calculator, 81 plus 144 equals 225. So then the square root of 225, use your calculator if you don't know what it is 15. So it's 15 centimeters. This is how long that one would be. Okay. All right. Now, sometimes you're not always just going to find the hypotenuse. If you go over to the next page, they're asking you to find one of the legs. So again, you still do the same thing. It's still the same formula. It's written up at the top. You would go straight across. That's always C. These two are A and B. So again, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. When I drop in the information, 15 squared. But this time, I don't know what B is because that's where X is. So I leave X squared, but it's equal to 17 squared. So the difference is now you got two sides. The numbers aren't on the same side of the equation. So you're going to have to subtract once we get going. So if 15 squared is 225, 17 squared is 289. Now I'm going to have to subtract before I take the square root. So I get x squared equals, and if I subtract those two, it's 64. So if I take the square root, then x is going to equal 8 centimeters. Okay. So let me do one more, and then again, if you guys want to try number 6, you can always look it up in the green packet of notes I gave you as for answers. So I look at this and I say, okay, there's the right angle going across, that's C. I know what C is. So then I label the other ones A and B. Again, doesn't matter which order. I write down the Pythagorean theorem, and I drop stuff in. Well, A is x, so that's what I don't know, x squared. B is 9, so 9 squared, and C is 15 squared. So again, when I solve this, I'm going to have to subtract because they're not on the same side. And these are pretty nice numbers. You don't always get nice numbers. Sometimes it'll come out to be something different. So it's 144. And then you take the square root, and x is going to be 12 inches. Okay. Sometimes you have to round. So I'll leave number 6 for you to try or look up in your notes just to save a little time. Okay, next thing is sometimes they'll give you 3 numbers and they'll say, could this make a right triangle? Well, again, you have to plug it in the Pythagorean theorem, but how do you assign who's A, B, and C? Well, C would always have to be the longest side. These two would have to be the legs. So I test it. I'm like, all right, if I square 6 squared plus 7 squared, does it equal 9 squared? So 36 plus 49 equals 81. Well, no, it doesn't. It actually equals 85. So because that works and it doesn't work and those aren't equal, it's not a right triangle. You can't have a right triangle out of it. Whereas if you did this one and said, okay, those must be the legs, that would have to be the hypotenuse. 6 squared plus 8 squared, does that equal 10 squared? Well, yeah, 36 and 64 equals 100. If you add those together, you get 100. So yes, that could form a right triangle. All right, that's the difference. And for the last 2 ones on here, sometimes you don't get a picture and you got to make your own. So when you got to make your own, you're going to try to do, draw the picture. Kyle needs to get up on the roof of his house. All right, so here's his house. Let's pretend he's got a house here. The roof is 20 feet high. So from here to here is 20 feet, okay? Kyle has to put the ladder 5 feet away from the house. All right, so you know you can't put the ladder that close. So he's got to move over 5 feet, and here's where his ladder is going to go. How long a ladder will he need to reach the roof? Okay, so that's x. So if I think about this, your house should be at a right angle. That means that we're looking for C because I don't have numbers there, and 20 and 5 would be the A and B. So when I write this down, I set it up like that, and I drop in 20 squared plus 5 squared would equal x squared. 400 plus 25 equals x squared. And here's a case where this is not a perfect square, so I'm going to have to use my calculator anyway to get the square root. So if I turn it on and I do square root of 425, I'm going to get an answer of 20.6. And it does say round to the nearest foot, so that's going to leave me with 21 feet. Okay. And the same idea here. Jenny is holding a 50-foot rope. So let me draw Jenny. She's holding a rope that is attached to a flagpole. She's standing from the bottom of a flagpole. So here's a flagpole over here, let's say. And she's standing 15 feet, it says, away from that flagpole. And she's holding a rope that's attached to the flagpole. I think maybe she's the girl who's pulling it up. So this rope is 50 feet. Okay, and again, the flagpole should be standing upright, so it's making a right angle. How high is the flagpole? So that's what I'm looking for, which means I'm looking for a leg, because this would be C, that could be A, that could be B. So if I plug it in the Pythagorean theorem, and I say, okay, 15 squared plus x squared equals 50 squared, then I'm going to get 225, so x squared equals 2,500. And I'm going to subtract 225, which then would give me 275. Okay. And I take the square root of 2275. then X turns out to be, I'm running out of space, 47.6. And it said to round to the nearest 10th. Oh, so if I round to the nearest 10th, it's actually 47.7 feet high. That's very cool. Okay, that's all for now, and we will get back together. So your job is to kind of see if you can try a couple of the problems on 21 and 22 and see what you come up with. And then I will obviously post the key to this week's work on Friday, so you guys can check your assignments on Friday, okay? All right, take care.